I definitely want to uplift and echo what Dr. Lucas said earlier. Happy Black History Month. That is something that I think more now than ever we have to double down. We have to make sure because as was previously mentioned and as we've been seeing and once again to all of you who are out there doing this work day in and day out, I know how difficult these past few weeks. It's felt like a year, but it's only been a couple of weeks, and how difficult it's been for those of us who are out there just trying to be advocates for our community, trying to make sure that we are assisting people to the best of our abilities, especially in a time of misinformation, in a time where things are just being thrown at us in every direction. So I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules, for being here today. As Dr. Lucas mentioned, my name is Julio Jordan. I am the Director, Diversity, Equity, Justice, and Inclusion here at Ibero American Action League. Hopefully, many of you, if not all, are aware of the work that Ibero does here in the community as well as throughout the region, going from Niagara Falls all the way to the Capital Region. Some of my background and some of the work that I do, and one of the things that I strive to really focus on is all of the sectors within our community that impact those individuals in our community. So that's, whether it's working with the REAL team as part of the Rochester City School District, whether it's working with Climate Solutions Accelerator and, addressing environmental solutions and impacts, working with the Monroe County Criminal Justice Council, basically addressing the justice side of things, and then health equity as a board member for Jordan Health Systems, and also for individuals who are dealing with just different adversities and Hillside, and partner with Urban League and all of the organizations and all of you. So just a little bit about me. I want to thank you all. The presentation today is called Cultural Sensitivities, Engaging the Latino Family. A lot of the things that I am going to be going over, I'm going to kind of just glance over it. A lot of it, honestly, is common sense, but I think more now than ever, since we've been bombarded from every direction, I think it's time that we just take a step back and just reflect and remember those things that should be common sense, not only to us, which I'm pretty sure they are, but to our country. Our country we're going through a lot right now. Our people are hurting. And, it's one of those things where it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I know that now is a time to double down and to really continue that fight and to continue to push forward in all of our efforts. So once again, thank you. Welcome to the presentation, and we will continue. So when we look at some of the objectives of today's presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about culture, cultural diversity, cultural competence. We're going to become more familiarized with the Latino community in the Rochester area, and to understand why cultural competence is important to building trust and establishing relationships and networks, not only within the Latino community, but as we know, in all of our communities. I think building trust and establishing those relationships are the things that are going to ensure that we are able to push forward. So these relationships and these things that we're doing really, to me, is what forms community. And now more than ever, we need our community. We need to be there for our community. We need to become more of a community, become stronger, because we're going to need everything that we possibly can to move forward. So moving forward, some important definitions that we're going to talk about is going to be culture, cultural diversity, cultural competence. So first, we'll start off with culture. This is the totality of socially transmitted behavior, patterns, arts, beliefs, institutions, and all other products of human work or thought. These patterns, traits, and products are considered as the expression of a particular period, class, community, or population, the predominant attitude and behavior that characterize the functioning of a group or an organization. So that's what creates the culture. When we look at the culture of an organization, when we look at our culture, these are the things that are really prevalent within that. Cultural diversity is recognizing that individuals come from a variety of ethnic, geographic, economic, and religious backgrounds. I think embracing that is what makes us not only able to learn from each other, but helps us form that community. Me, myself, I am Puerto Rican, but I was not raised in Puerto Rico. I was raised in New York City. So even when we look at the diversity within my own culture, growing up in New York City, South Bronx to be specific, very much different than growing up on the island of Puerto Rico. So these things are all going to be impacted. And I always mention this when I talk about it, is that, where we grow up, the geography, um, regardless of our own identity, there's going to be differences in the way that we view things and the resources that we have, in the way that we carry ourselves, and in the life that we live. So just things to think about. Some of the things that, once again, pretty straightforward, but I want to reiterate this now more than ever, because if we did this today, if everyone did this, and I always look at it from the top all the way down. So right now, the top is our government and those powers there that may be that are in power. These are the things that I believe will strengthen us and will, instead of dividing, will actually bring us closer together. Encouraging communication, being open and sharing a part of yourself, being open to the differences, understanding that what makes us different is what makes this community so rich. Our different experiences, our different walks of life, the different places that we've seen, the different situations that we've been a part of. All of these things are what make us who we are and what strengthens our community. Listen effectively right now, to me, is more important than ever. Instead of listening to respond, using active, proactive listening, really understanding where that individual is coming from, but also anticipating um, what some of those things may be. Being empathetic, number one, right now, if people had more empathy, starting from the top down, if people understood what the other person feels, unfortunately, if someone has not walked in our shoes, they really don't understand what it is that we feel and where it is that we come from. So they have to do that work. And empathy is something that you either have or you don't have. Using inclusive language, giving everyone access to the communication process, making sure that it's about us and not them. And that's what we've been hearing a lot lately, is them. It's those people. It's those individuals that are causing these things to happen, instead of looking at it as, this is our community. This is our country. What are we going to do to make sure that everyone is supported? Speaking with a sense of equality, even though we know that, and one of the things that I strive for, I don't strive for equality, right? Because I look at equality as if we were all right now barefoot, and obviously there's snow outside and it's cold, and I say, hey, I'm going to give everyone in this space a pair of size 14 boots. Well, that's being equal, because I'm giving everyone a pair of size 14 boots. But is that truly going to benefit you if you don't wear a size 14? If you do, great. But if you don't, how is that going to benefit you? So for me, it's more about the equity. But when we're speaking about equity, we need to understand and respect each other as human beings, being supportive, accepting the way that different people do things, and being other oriented, showing interest in what others bring to the communication process, and embracing those differences. Once again, knowing that we all come from different parts of the world, from different parts of the community. We speak different languages. We've experienced so many different things. But the more that I can sit down and say, hey, let me get to know you, let me get to understand you, those are things that are going to make the communication process that much better for everyone. And then when we go to cultural competence is a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies that come together in a system, an agency, or among professionals to be able to work effectively in cross-cultural situations. And this is where we tie in our own culture and who we are, the diversity amongst our community and those that we work alongside, and then how we take all of this together to be able to work together in a system and agency. And when I look at a system could be a neighborhood, a community. Those to me are all the things that the more that we understand, not only ourselves, but that we understand and give grace to others, we are able to now work in these cross-cultural situations and actually learn from each other and strengthen our own knowledge base, which is to me one of the keys. So when we look at cultural competence as a continuum, one of the things that I always like to stress is that this journey, there is no destination. We're not going to arrive somewhere. It's not like when you punch in your GPS and you say, okay, I'm going from Rochester to Buffalo, and you arrive and GPS tells you you've arrived at your destination. This is not that. This is something that we know is going to be dynamic. It's going to change. We're going to have to find different ways. And we're seeing that today. As of the last couple of weeks, the systems and the policies and the laws that have been basically attempted to be removed, that were put in place to make sure that a lot of these things weren't occurring. We see what's happening, but we still have to remain resilient and we still have to continue to push forward. I am still going to continue to be diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion, regardless of what anyone says. That's the work that I do. That's the work that I'm passionate about, and that's what it is that I know is going to impact my community the most. But when we look at cultural competence as a continuum, we see that there is a beginning point and an ending point only because there's a difference in where you may be. When we look at cultural destructiveness, which I believe in my heart that a lot of the things that are being done to be destructive to cultures. It's attitudes, policies, and practices which are destructive to cultures and consequently to the individuals within the culture. It's basically telling individuals that you cannot show up as you are. If I speak Spanish and English, I consider that a superpower. If you speak three languages, that's a superpower. The things that you bring from your own experiences, that's your superpower. So for anyone to minimize or diminish that is basically trying to strip my power away. And when attitudes, policies, and practices are put in place that say, no, you cannot do this, that is basically the path to cultural destructiveness. Cultural incapacity is unintentional cultural destructiveness, but I think that there is some intention there, but it's characterized by the lack of capacity to help minority individuals or communities in the belief in racial superiority. The fact that we're having discussions today about the Civil Rights Act, about all of these federal laws that were fought for, that people died for, to have individuals look at these and try to strip them away, to basically weaponize the term DEI and woke, when in all reality, DEI and the work that I do is really not so much focused on one particular race as it is humanity as a whole, and making sure that that equitable resources and opportunities are there, not because the fact that I am Puerto Rican, that I should have something handed to me. But I don't want the fact that I'm Puerto Rican be the reason why I'm not even given the opportunity to step into that room or be at that table. That's the difference. Cultural blindness is something that I've really wrestled with over these past 5 years. Obviously, we've all experienced, a dual pandemic. We went through COVID, which was something that none of us have ever seen or experienced. But at the same time, we went through a racial pandemic where we saw innocent individuals, for whatever reason, being murdered senselessly, and movements that really spoke for and voiced those frustrations and then made it so that the snooze button was no longer being hit, because that's what has been done for far too long. And you know what happens when you hit the snooze button? You end up being too late to wherever it is that you were going. And I think that that's happened. But cultural blindness, and I think now more than ever, is people when my brothers and sisters yell Black Lives Matter, and I say, no, all lives matter, that's minimizing the fight that my brothers and sisters are having currently. That's for me, if I'm in a neighborhood and one of my neighbor's house is burning, and they're like, hey, my house is burning, I need help. And I'm saying, well, yeah, but why is your house more important than my house? My house may burn next. I need to worry about mine because all houses matter, not just yours. To me, that's asinine. And it just doesn't make sense. If anything, why not join and say, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. But cultural blindness is just that. It's, oh, I see everyone the same. If you don't see me for who I am, if you don't see me, my characteristics, if my skin, if you don't see all of those adversities that I've faced, then you don't see me as an individual. Then how can you even start to believe and think that you understand where I'm coming from? And more importantly, if you are making decisions on behalf of me, how can I trust you to make those decisions with my best intentions in mind when you don't see me, when you don't see that color, when you don't see those struggles, when you don't see the lack of resources and the difficulties and obstacles that were placed in front of me that made things more difficult? I'm still going to get to where I want to go, but the path there is more difficult for others than it is for many. Cultural pre-competence is a system which realizes its weakness in serving minorities and actively attempts to improve some aspects of service to a specific population, such as recruiting ethnic minority personnel, establishing liaisons, and seeking cultural knowledge. One of the things for me personally in the work that I do that I'm very blessed to be able to do with iBurrow and within our community is working with organizations. And I'll share one quick success is a private organization, a for-profit business that really struggled with recruiting and retaining employees from Black and Brown communities, African Americans, um, Latino, and other individuals from marginalized communities. And they were like, well, I don't understand why we're struggling so much. And when we first sat down and I first met with them and talked to them, I looked at it and said, okay, I want to sit down with your leadership team. And then when I looked at the leadership team, I'm like, well, it's hard to say that you want to attract what you currently don't reflect. It's difficult to do that. Even more importantly, if you're an organization that is, let's say, in our Rochester community, you are advocating for and you are providing services to, let's say, for example, 20% of the population in Rochester, Monroe County, which is Latino, but yet you don't have one individual on the board or your executive leadership team that is Latino, even though the people on that organization might be well intended, they still don't understand that struggle. They can't walk in the shoes, in our shoes, in my shoes, to be able to make those decisions based off of their own experiences. So you want to make sure that that diversity is present, especially when the communities you serve, the diversity is present. So that pre-competence is understanding that. Basic cultural competence is not only understanding that, but conducting your own self-assessments. That could be as simple as if you're doing onboarding, or let's say someone is leaving the organization, asking those questions to see if maybe the reason why they left, because a lot of times we think, oh, they left because they got better pay. A lot of times they leave because they never felt included. They never felt like their voice mattered. They felt like they were just a person in a seat doing a job. And when people feel like they are a part of a family, which I'm blessed to be a part of a family here at iBurrow, it just makes it so that the work doesn't feel like work, even when it is at its most difficult. And organizations like this are basically always asking, what do you think? How do you feel? Representations are everywhere. Embracing of different cultures is prevalent. Understanding that Black History Month, even though it should be celebrated all year, is in February, and we should do things very intentional to celebrate those accomplishments. Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrate those accomplishments. Indigenous Peoples Month, all of these different great cultures and people from different backgrounds, regardless of how you identify, regardless of your social status, regardless of where you come from, being able to celebrate that. And then advanced cultural competence is where I would love, and if I had a wish and I had the perfect world scenario, would be that organizations all across the board, from government all the way down to a car dealership, that they really understand culture, that they understand the differences, that they, instead of prejudging or assuming based off of what they've been taught or what they've seen or what they've come to believe, could actually do these things, because then we will see those improved relations between cultures and throughout society. So just as just a rhetorical question for you to ask yourself, where are you in this continuum? Where do you see yourself? Think about some of the individuals that you support, your own organization. Where are they? I would even challenge you to say, where is our government? Not only our government countrywide, but countywide, citywide. Where are these things, and what are we going to do to continue to fight and advocate on behalf of those that we know need it the most? So kind of just switching gears a little bit, growth of the community. Here in the Rochester, Finger Lakes region, Monroe County and surrounding areas, the Latino community has grown from 49,173 to over 93,000 people in the last 20 years. The population currently in Monroe County is over 74,000, and about 80% of them live in the city of Rochester. My office is right outside of North Clinton Avenue, right behind St. Michael's Church, which in one of these slides you'll be able to see that. But a lot of the things that drive our communities, and this is not just our community, this is a lot of individuals within our community that come from different ethnicities, races, and backgrounds. Trust. Trust is an essential element of building relationships with Latinos and Hispanics. Trust is actually more important than the car you drive, because we didn't formulate our system of respect based off of how big your house is or what title you have or how many PhDs you have. All of that is great, but respect, trust. Can I trust you? That's important. If I go to a doctor and that doctor might be highly esteemed, highly regarded, but we don't have that trust, how likely am I to continue to go to that doctor? And my father was one of those who, regardless of who it was, he just never felt welcome, never felt embraced in those environments. So as a result, guess what? His health was at a detriment as a result of this. Or culture is formal, respect is highly valued. This here is exactly like, if you look right behind St. Michael's Church on your screen, you can literally see our office building. But religion and spirituality values, personal devotion to the church is important for many Latinos and Hispanics. In every Caribbean country, such as Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and a lot of others, you're always going to find what they call a placita, which is a marketplace directly across from the church. And that's, thankfully, because of the hard work of a lot of individuals, it's finally a reality here on North Clinton Avenue with the International Plaza, La Marqueta. But this is something that you see, and those are things that when individuals need within the community, the church is usually the first place that they go. That's where community is formed, where community is bound. That's where you can really get to see all your brothers and sisters. Family values, family unity is very important among the Latino Hispanic cultures, and understanding that family consists of, or doesn't consist of, just the father, wife, children, but it's everyone, brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces, sometimes living in the same home. One of the things that we normally, it's not a norm within our culture is, once our elders become of certain age, that we put them in a nursing home. Not to say that's bad, but that's just not what we do as individuals. If you raised us, we're going to be there for you. until you can no longer be here. And those are the things that we really strive for, we really value. Sharing financial and emotional support. If I have it, you have it. That's basically it. Education, education is definitely important. It plays a very important role, as it does in many communities and cultures, as persons with higher degrees are respected. One thing I will say about the Latino culture, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you could echo this in your own, is, if you have someone that, let's say, is a nurse or a doctor in your family, you are now the nurse or the doctor for everyone in the family. They're not going to go to the hospital. They're not going to go to their doctor. They're going to go to you first. If you know anything about law, they're going to go to you first. If you know anything about accounting, you're doing the taxes because that trust is already there within the family. And the fact that you have that knowledge and education, everyone is going to go and gravitate towards you within the family. Healthcare values, some individuals still use traditional herbs or medications. One of the biggest ones, and I always like to joke around, and I'm sure some of you will be able to say, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Vicks Vapor Rub cures everything. Not sure if it does, but it does. Everyone has it. It's within reach. It's in everyone's medicine cabinet. I know I have a few. The use of home remedies is common practice in Latin American countries. Curandero, which could be called a witch doctor, which really is not as negative sounding as it may appear, but it's more of an individual who works with different herbs and different ways that are non-traditional, that don't involve, Western medicine, that don't involve taking a Tylenol. And there are other ways of doing things. Healthcare values, like I mentioned my dad earlier, we're not used to preventative medicine. Unfortunately, this is the reason why so many of us end up finding out that we have stage 4 cancer or that we have pancreatic cancer when it's already too late, when we can't no longer fight it. Um, my dad was one of those. I used to be one of those individuals that only went to the doctor when I was extremely sick. Like I had to feel like I was dying before I stepped foot in the doctor's office. Now I set up my appointments when I leave for my last appointment. Yearly physical, okay, let's set that up. Prostate exam, let's set that up. Let's do all of these things that we would normally view as not necessary because unfortunately we're finding out way too late that it was necessary, and now there's nothing that we can do. Mental illness is viewed as craziness. That's another thing that I'm personally trying to fight against is the fact that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to need a hug or give a hug um, and not be viewed as crazy because you feel a certain type of way. I think bottling all that pressure and bottling all those emotions in is what busts pipes, right? Pressure busts pipes. And what ends up happening is that it manifests itself in ways that bring about violence, that bring about the things that plague our community today. If we knew how to talk about our issues and our problems, if we weren't viewed as being weak, right? Or the term is man up, shouldn't have to man up. I think if anything, that makes you more of a man or a woman, the fact that you're able to express those emotions. Not all of us can do that, but we're working on it. Avoiding assumptions. One of the biggest assumptions is, looking at and understanding that many are born in the US, speak English, lead a very modern lifestyle. Another assumption that really mind boggles me is that as a Puerto Rican, even if I was born in Puerto Rico, I am an American citizen. But yet in the news, I'm seeing more and more individuals who are being questioned and having to prove their citizenship, whereas others are not. And it makes me wonder what's the difference between the two. Taking the time to find out about each family's values and beliefs, understanding traditional gender roles, machismo. I think if we view any, I look back on TV shows back in the 70s and 80s, when I look at movies, always look at my Latinos like the strong, tough guy. And they're the ones that are like, oh, beard and, real grungy. And it's like, no, I think if you really understood the woman is the one that runs the household in most of our families, but what we've been taught and what we've been um, basically ingrained in us is these things. And that's the reason why we're seeing so many of the difficulties we're seeing nowadays. Their connections with extended family can be especially important. However, don't generalize about gender roles. Everyone plays their position. Be willing to devote the time and energy necessary to meet as many members of the family, especially those that are working directly with different families. Understand that if 8 people show up, that's because everyone is engaged, everyone is involved, and everyone feels like they need to be a part of the process. Being ready to help families maintain their traditional family system, even in the face of great obstacles. Right now, my heart goes out to many of the asylum seekers who I burrow literally helped come into this community and really to help them integrate, to help them have clothing on their backs and get all of their affairs in order so that they can do the things the right way, who are now unfortunately having to look over their shoulders, who are now having to prove how American they are. And if they don't have the correct paperwork, are being sent back home. And who knows what's going to happen when they get back there. They left for a reason. So things to think about. And I'm just going to kind of fly by because I want to leave some questions and answers. I see some questions in the chat. Um, Understanding that there is pressure on immigrants to adopt the practices of the dominant culture, but doing so may cause a great sense of loss and may be detrimental to their ability to function. That's one thing I will personally never lose. And I didn't grow up in Puerto Rico, but waving the flag and having the flag and being proud and the music and the food and all of these things that make us who we are, no one could ever take that away, regardless of what's going on. Rather than adding to this pressure, finding out how they have traditionally solved problems, work with them. We know that many individuals came here from Puerto Rico as a result of not only the hurricanes, but the earthquakes. And once again, we personally worked with a lot of those families to integrate them into our community, to make them feel welcomed, to make them feel at home. But we know that all of these impacts, regardless of where you come from, but specifically with these hurricanes and earthquakes, a lot of these things transpired and these individuals came here with nothing but the clothing on their back and had to deal with a lot of this stuff. Individuals right now, which I just got some information where many of the families that are here on asylum, the attendance has dramatically dropped. Many individuals who were going to the doctors and to the hospital, that dramatically has dropped. Think about the impact that that's going to have on top of the fact that people are fearful, are not able to get the services that may save their lives. Once again, being listened to, this is for anyone, for everyone, to be understood and validated, to instill a sense of hope, to provide those resources. And then just real quick, some barriers to cultural competence, lack of knowledge of the other's group culture, language differences, stereotyping, prejudging versus getting to know them, valuing differences, the religious differences that we all may have. It's fine, I can learn from you. I don't need to instill or try to overpower you with what I believe. I can learn from what it is that you believe and respect the differences. There's nothing wrong with that. Media exposure, we know that these devices, can't really see it, but these devices are used to spread a lot of misinformation. Could be used for good, but unfortunately, it's being used for a lot of bad. So we have to make sure that we are really understanding where the sources are coming from and educating ourselves. Lack of access to equal educational, financial resources, we know that's a barrier. We see it in our school districts. We see it in the way that we live. And I can go on with redlining, and I can go on with all of the different inequities that we face. But you know what? A lot of us already know that. What are we going to do to push forward? And how are we going to drop those walls or kick those walls and doors down? Making a conscious effort to understand the meaning of the other person's behavior within his or her cultural context and allow them to show up as they are in their entirety. And then always asking or feeling free to ask and learn about others' cultures. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing. I thank you for listening to me. I love talking, but we're talking about 40 minutes now. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to open up the floor for anyone that may have any questions. I know there's questions in the chat. Anything that you want to add, anything that you want to, um, you know, bring into this space, please feel free to do so. I see Shannon is on screen, so I'll let her do what she does, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. I think it is very timely with what is going on in the world. And I know I learned a lot. So thank you, Julio, again. I know there's a lot of people on here. Thank you everyone for coming. So we are going to do a Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Do we have any in the chat? As we wait, I have kind of a thought for you. The other day, I was speaking on a panel at Brockport, and I had a couple students come up to me asking about DEI. Should have introduced myself. I'm Shannon Rielsberger, the Equity and Advocacy Coordinator at the Urban League of Rochester. So my role is DEI, as is yours, Julio. So these kids were interested in going into the field of DEI, and they're just like, what do we do? We're scared it's going to go away. They're saying it's going to go away. What do we do? And so I kind of just encouraged them. I was like, you guys seem very passionate about this. You are young people, you're the next generation, you have energy. Just stick with it. They can't take it away, especially if you're here. So, what kind of advice would you have for young people who want to go into the field of DEI?
Yeah, honestly, I would definitely echo what what you said to them, but just, you know, the enemy is always trying to take away all your energy. And the enemy is always trying to figure out a way to just bombard you with so much where you just feel hopeless and helpless. And I think that's when you need to really fight even more. So for individuals that this is their passion, like this is my passion, this is something that I don't work 9 to 5. I work 24 hours a day because of the fact that this is something I'm always doing. Is you continue to push forward. Don't let kind of like this is the best time to put your blinders on. Don't be oblivious to what's going on around you, but stay focused and stay steadfast in what it is that you're doing. And regardless of what individuals want to call it, it's basically advocating for human rights for individuals to have the opportunity, right? And don't let certain populations or certain individuals kind of diminish or minimize what it means. Because, like I said earlier in the presentation, they're really trying to make it so that DEI is a black and white thing, when in all reality, it's not, because there are individuals with disabilities, there are individuals that identify, different communities, whether it's LGBTQ plus or whatever it may be, and they're trying to make it so that DEI is specifically black and white. And even worse is they're trying to take your job because of the color of their skin. When in all reality, that's not the case. That is not what DEI is about. That's not the work that I do. And I would never be behind that type of work. But once again, it's kind of fight through the misinformation, make sure that you work to educate others so that individuals have the information that they need and able to continue to move forward. But don't give up if this is something that you love and you're passionate about. Do not give up. Now is the time to fight even more. And then I saw a
Awesome,
question
thank
real
you.
quick. Andrea, my question is about the right term. Hey, Andrea, for people of Hispanic descent, does Latinx cover everyone? Honestly, I am not the expert on Latino, Hispanic. Um, the term Latinx, to give you a little bit of background, was not a term that was created by Latinos or Latinas. It was a term that was created to basically represent, and that's the reason why you've had so much resistance. Honestly, for me, you can call me Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, Latina. As long as what you're calling me is calling me from a place of respect, humanity, peace, and love and genuineness, I'm okay with it. Certain individuals might have different ways, but I think that the more you get to know individuals and the more you get to know the community and the people that you're serving, the more that you'll know the proper term. I guess is the best way that I can answer that question, Andrea. So depending on who you ask, yes, Latinx covers everyone. Because I think that's the term was created, once again, not by Latinos or Latinas, to basically be inclusive of everyone. But that's not always the case. As far as people accepting it, me, I'm okay with it. I mean, call me Julio, call me Puerto Rican. I've been called Mexican. I'll kindly correct you because calling me Mexican is not an insult, but I will, let you know I am Puerto Rican. There is a difference. And if you don't see that difference, shame on you. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing now is people are lumping everyone together and you're all this, you're all immigrants, you're all dangerous, you're all of these things that, wow, like I must be oblivious to it because I'm actually working with these individuals and I don't see it. And I'm sure a lot of you who are working with a lot of these individuals don't see it either. But yet we're being told over and over again that this is the case. So um, you're welcome, Seneca. Immigrants may have experienced or be experiencing multiple layers of trauma. Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about it. I mean, I spoke with families, spoke with individuals that came here, specifically the asylum seekers from Venezuela who were talking about walking. Like I'm turning 50 soon, consider myself pretty healthy, but I am not walking from here to my house on the west side, let alone walking from one country to another for months at a time to get somewhere and experiencing the things that they have experienced. And then to get to where they were going only to then be having an added trauma put on top of that. So there's a lot of different things that are going on. People who are losing loved ones, or losing family and friends, who are losing themselves in the process, on top of everything else that's going on. Yeah, it's definitely a tough time. A tough time. I had a very close friend of mine who is originally from a different country, and mentioned that after 40 years, they now have to carry around their papers because they don't know if they're going to be stopped one day and detained and have to prove through an entire lengthy process that they are an American citizen. This is not where we should be. This is not where we should be. So thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Any questions? Thank you for those that put in the chat great info. If you have any information that you would want to share, we have a little bit of time left. I see some of the comments. Community building is how we survive. Absolutely. When I always say, when they go low, we go high. We have to. We have to. Anyone else? Any questions? Any last thoughts? Anything that you want to add to the conversation? This is our space. I was the presenter today, but we are all in this together. We are all experts in this work. The fear that is being installed is domestic terrorism in my eyes, and I could wholeheartedly agree with that. It is. It is. When I have been hearing of families who have been hiding, who have been basically, going into the basements or going into the attics, who have been hiding because they they're just afraid, they're scared. It makes me think back. This is not the first time in this country that individuals had to do this, right? Think about that. Think about that. And it's always seems to be specific individuals that have to go through that. And it's unfortunate. Any recommended resources for immigrants dealing with ICE? Um, Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, if there's anything that we can help out at iBorough, iBorough has a community resource center. We are heavily involved in a lot of the work that is out there supporting families and individuals from all different walks of life. So that's something that you can definitely always, you can always reach out to us. I know there are local organizations as well that are doing great work. Um, so I would challenge you to look those organizations up. I'm trying to find a couple, but I know that there is one specific organization. The Legal Aid Society I know is one, but give me one moment. Immigration Advocates Network could be another resource. These are resources in our community here in Rochester. So definitely would encourage you to look into that. And let me just see, as I'm looking up, I want to make sure that I'm trying to provide as many of those resources as possible, but also reaching out to, your local, like I said, local politicians. They're the ones that need to be on top of this. But Just Cause is the organization I was thinking about. Just Cause, it's a great organization that really advocates on behalf of many in our community from all different things, but they also do specialize in immigration or dealing with ICE. Knowing your rights, knowing the laws. I'm going to see if I can put this in the link real quick.
I
But
think Empire Justice is another one. Empire Justice.
Empire Justice, yep.
We've been talking a lot about knowing your rights recently. I went to a legal aid training about immigration last week, and they just kept reiterating you have the right to remain silent. They talked about the red cards that are available. I don't remember what organizations are giving them out, but you can find them online and print the red cards. It just tells you exactly what to say if ICE shows up at your door, and they offer them in multiple languages as well. I don't know if
And
Ibero has those.
yeah, we do. I just put something in the link in the chat as well that will give you a lot of information as well as far as the rights, as far as there are some documents that you can download as well that you can share, but a lot of the things are on there. You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone that was, that made the time to be here, that shared in the conversation. If there's any way that I can ever help, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. I will be the first to say I don't have all the answers, but I will find the answer one way or the other. So if you reach out and I might not be able to help you right away, I will connect you with someone that can. So feel free to reach out. If you have any questions, anything whatsoever, that's what I'm here for. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Julio. This was very insightful. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know it's been a crazy couple of weeks. So thank you for coming and joining us today. And thank you everyone who joined the call.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.